republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Likewise? Okay, agenda is approved. The consent agenda, the superintendent recommends approval of the following consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise? Consent agenda is approved. There is no old business, so we are going into new business, which of course comprises our end-of-year business. Mr. Sosha, it is your show.
Happy Monday, or as we like to say, Happy New Year's Eve on June 30th. Getting ready for New Year tomorrow. That's, I tell you.
Dun, dun.
Not only is the joke week, but so's the celebration.
I think there will be wits in our future later on today.
We will have fireworks in your honor on Friday, Bernie.
There we go.
It took a moment.
Funny. No, I got it. It's just funny. It's just, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so in light of the discussion that the state does not have a budget, that does not prevent us from having to have a budget.
It will allow us to not have a
Exactly. So the first item we have this morning is to put an interim budget resolution into place. This is the formality required for us to continue business operations starting July 1, and ours goes through December 31, but fingers crossed that we will have a regular initial budget to present to you in advance of that. There is nothing too scientific about the budget other than it is enough to get us through December's county revenues. That is the impetus behind the amount that is presented based on current continuing operations for the local. Same thing for the state budget. It is the current budget there to get us halfway through the year. Federal is a little more comprehensive of all of the federal grants that we anticipate having in the budget for the year, just because of the timing of them. Child nutrition and child care are a portion for just half the year, but it does include revenue that we will receive through that point for capital outlay as well. Like I said, this is so that we can operate and purchase and pay people in July.
Any questions for Mr. Sosha?
I just noticed that the one from last year was interim as well.
Correct, we do one every year.
Yeah. So the nutritional services, that's a huge difference between last year and this year. 108 versus 33. I don't even pretend to understand what the finances are. It was just a number that jumped out at me, and so I'm just asking for, can you just tell me why?
So which one are you comparing?
Page 1.
Oh, on the state budget, not the child nutrition budget. Okay.
And if you want to discuss that later, I would like to do that. I just don't understand all of the numbers, how they're so, that one's huge. That's a very, very big difference.
What did we have then?
We had 33 last year versus 108.
I'm trying to remember what,
I don't want to put you on the spot. I trust you. I'm just
no,
asking.
so last year we spent 65,000 in state on the child nutrition line item, hence why it was 33. That is, was 50% of what we ended up spending in the budget for last year. I'm trying to remember what additional portion is going to fit into the 7,200 line for this coming year. It'll all be state funded. I can go back and look that up though and see specifically where that additional funding came from.
Okay. No more questions.
Anyone else? I'll take a motion.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the 2025-26 interim budget resolution as presented.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed likewise? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Sosha.
Thank you. Okay, this next one is something that got put into place a few years back. Every year we have to make this self-certification. So the uniform guidance when it comes to purchasing goods and services with federal funds, the threshold for bidding has been put down to $10,000. But they put a procedure in place that is this micro purchase threshold authorization certification that we have to increase from 10 to 30,000 for the purchase of goods and 50,000 for service contracts for use with federal funds. So this is something that we have to go through every year so that we can go beyond that $10,000 before we have to put out a bid for federal funds. Doesn't affect anything with any of the state funding or local funding. It's always the most restrictive, and it doesn't impact anything that, as far as board approval. It's just allowing our departments to do quotes under the 30 and 50,000 instead of having to do a formal bid process.
It still has to come to the board.
Still's going to come, yeah.
And this will be the fourth year that you would operate under this.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the resolution authorizing an increase in the micro purchase threshold for fiscal year 25-26.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise? Motion carries.
Okay, one more from me. A full source for Elevation. This is software management program that Simone Wertenberger's program uses. It's data management. It tracks enrollment testing and other services. The reason we are bringing it as a sole source is because this is the one that the neighboring counties and other states, they also use the same software, so that when a student comes to us from somewhere else, we can communicate with them, get all the background information we need on the students so that we can very quickly provide them the right services they need. It also has a filtering capability that PowerSchool did not have, Infinite Campus also does not have, which allows for us to know what services the students need as well as to help with Simone's staffing needs. This helps determine what her staffing is. We've attached the sole source certification from the company that says they are a sole source as well. And price-wise, we're spending about $25,000, not to exceed $25,000 with the company, but they're here for continuity of service through sole source exemption so that we can work with them.
So what, it's not a required or mandated federal piece of software, but it's an agreed upon piece of software, particularly in locales that have migrant students bumping back and forth. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any questions?
I just have a comment. I was able to go in and look up the Curriculum Associates. That's actually, and I got a little sample, it's phenomenal. It's really a great program. I enjoyed it a lot just watching. I mean, it's really good. So, yeah, kudos to that.
And again, this allows that continuity.
Yeah. Without something like this, it could take weeks, not
It
months.
is a huge time saver.
Oh, yeah.
Program.
Motion?
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the non-competitive procurement waiver as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, aye. All those opposed, likewise. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Socia, I want to thank you publicly for such a fine job that you do in overseeing our finances. I know that there are school districts very close by who are in a crisis financially and for reasons I have no idea. But I always appreciate you being very transparent, you keeping us informed, and that goes for you too, Mr. Superintendent. You always operate with the utmost transparency, and we appreciate that. It gives us opportunities to plan ahead, and we just appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It's a great leadership team and a great department down there.
Yeah,
So-
I want to say thank you to the staff too that churns all of June. They work hard all year, but then June is the just stay out of their way and don't make eye contact because of today, financial New Year's Eve. So just really appreciate all that everybody does to keep the train running very, very well here.
And I agree. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It's an honor to do it.
Thank you. All right, next is a discussion on cell phone legislation. Mr. Garrett, do you want to share with us?
Yeah, so
We've got
House
coming-
Bill, so for the first time, we will have a statewide personal device electronic cell phone policy. It's House Bill 959. They started out as two different bills in the House and the Senate, then they came to this combined bill that is House Bill 959. It has been sent to the governor, and he is expected to sign it. So ahead of the next school year, we have to talk about what our cell phone policy is as compared to the statute and what your pleasure might be as a board moving forward. Now, what we have in place does fit the law, so you can do nothing, and we will be compliant with the law, with the exception of having to make sure with our school administrators that we have the if you violate X, then you get Y on the discipline piece, on the student accountability piece. And that will be something that we would do administratively internally. But have a presentation here. Is that- okay. Mr. Taylor really taught me to get to do this because he loves to come up and do policy, right? But this is really as much for information as anything else. So this is your policy right now. It defines the devices to include cell phones, electronic devices with internet capability, paging devices, two-way radios, similar, any new tech that would come out. They're not to be activated, used, displayed, or visible during the instructional day or as otherwise directed by school rules or school personnel. Allows administrators and teachers to authorize student use during the day for educational purposes or whatever purposes they see fit. Administrators or staff may confiscate devices that are on, used, displayed, or visible. And then policy and possible consequences are covered in the Student Code of Conduct. This is House Bill 959. It's been sent to the governor. Governor Stein is expected to sign this bill. Includes cell phones, tablets, laptops, all those things that your policy covers. Requires each public school unit to have a policy that, at a minimum, prohibits students from using, displaying, or having a wireless communication device turned on during instructional time. So instructional time is what they had. They had one of the original ones that talked about having it on during the day at all. Then when it got in the language of the bill, it turned to instructional time. So as you can see, your policy, current, is in compliance. So you do not have to create a new policy. You can amend this current policy if you wish. Exceptions to House 959, authorized by a teacher for educational purposes or for use in the event of an emergency, as required by an IEP or a 504, or to manage their health care. And one of the most common ones we see is with diabetes care now and blood sugar. And it is like having been a principal when you had to check kids' insulin and they had to come up to the office and now they can scan and you can see it. It's amazing. And their care is much better too. Their health is much better. Consequences for violations of the policy must be established under the Code of Student Conduct. So this is where we would work internally to make sure that very clearly, it's a little more nebulous now as to what those would be, but we would work with our high school and middle school and elementary principals to say, to comply with 959, the procedures for a violation of your policy, whatever policy is in place, would be X, Y, and Z.
I would love for that to be the same at every school?
It will be.
Okay,
That, yes, ma'am, that's a Garrett non-negotiable.
Good.
That we continue to keep moving towards. So that'll be one of those things that we will make sure is in place
nice.
for consistency.
So, on that House Bill, 957, including cell phones, tablets, laptops, paging device, I don't see earpieces in there.
So your policy, the way it is written, talks about electronic devices.
All of them, okay,
So anything that would be connected or like the smartwatches.
right.
Well, that would all just need to be encompassed in that, because I think we've gotten very lackadaisical.
So devices with internet capability, paging devices, two-way radios, and similar devices. So that's already in 4317.
What?
The glasses.
Oh, man, okay, you're gonna have to educate me, because I have no idea.
So there are internet-connected glasses that you can put on, and it'll display in the screen. That you can see, but nobody else can see.
Seriously? I need to get me a pair of those.
They're actually pretty cool.
Okay, where do I buy those?
We could never specifically
not
name
crazy
every
expensive either.
device.
They're not, they're only a couple $100 bucks.
Really?
Yeah.
We will never keep up with where they are technologically,
Right.
but we can do what we can.
So this is why it's good to have that last phrase, similar devices.
Okay,
And devices are not to be activated, used, displayed, or visible during the instructional day or is otherwise directed by school rules or school
What
purpose.
is our definition of instructional day in our,
So your policy just talks about during the day, the instructional day, not instructional time. So it says during the school day right now. And you can be more restrictive. So you can, like I said, your policy is 4313. You do not have to touch it, and you will be in compliance with this law when it is signed in, or this bill when it's signed into law. As you see here, the policy must be adopted by January 21st, 2026. So my purpose for this discussion was twofold. One is to let you know that there is now going to be a bill that will be a law governing student cell phone use and personal communication devices use. That's going to require every public school unit to have a policy. Well, you have a policy. I'm just letting you know, you have a policy in place. So this is just a comparison and contrast between the provisions of 959 and what your current policy says. And I don't feel I need to read them to you. You can scan through them there.
Now, none of it says, like, you have to, it's just saying there has to be a policy, but it doesn't include anything about the disciplinary stuff. That all needs to be.
It just says you have to have it listed so that people know what it is.
well, the disciplinary action?
Yes.
Okay.
So violation the first time, violation second time, et cetera.
Which you will establish
We
administratively.
will do that administratively.
Applied to all schools.
Yes.
Equally.
So if we have a policy that complies, why would we do anything any different?
agreed.
I agree.
Other than make sure it's
Enforcing it-
applied.
Yes, enforcing it and, well, and that's my part that I was because I know it says other devices, but my question is, how clear are we actually being with students that your watches qualify, your Bluetooth qualifies in your headphone, that all of these things qualify, because you go into every school just about, and, I mean, they all have their earpieces in, they all have their headphones on.
So what are we thinking about first offense, second offense, third offense? Are we thinking, are you thinking along?
So we haven't
Are you
gotten to
thinking
that.
along those lines?
We haven't gotten to that. We'll gather the principals and go through it because they're the ones that are managing this day to day. I'm not the one who manages this day to day. This will be something that they and their teachers can live with, and feel like that they can equitably enforce and consistently enforce. And the thing I think as a Board of Education, and that we have to remember at this level, is whatever those consequences are, we need to make sure that we are supportive of those consequences from parents. You know, it's the parents that will cause the most concerns with a new change in our procedures. It's not a policy change unless you change your policy, but with a new change in the procedures. is just making sure that we're consistent with our communication about that and consistent with our backing of our administrators when they put these into place.
Well, I would just like to voice my opinion on that and not have the phones removed out of the classroom. I did hear of a teacher having a charging station for their phones. So if something were to happen, the phone would be right there with the child instead of locked away in the locker. And that is just my personal preference. So, however much weight that carries.
Here's some middle school, they have to keep them in their locker till the end of the day.
Okay.
I think most middle schools, I can't speak for all, but I think most middle schools require that.
No, they can't have it. If it's in your backpack, you're in trouble.
So the way your policy,
If they pull it out.
Well, yeah, and at that point, your discipline kicks
Yeah.
in, and this is what
Right.
happens because you've now violated.
And there's always people that do it and they get in trouble, whatever.
yeah, so the way your policy is written, your principals are the ones who are in charge of that piece. And we'll work with them as the 4 middle schools and the 5 high school principals to get that consistency in place.
I think the hard one really is like the early college, right? So, I mean, a lot of them aren't even on that campus.
And this would apply when they're with us,
So it's only in that building.
the instructional day,
Well, that big can be in.
or whatever, yeah. Listen, we can what-if this thing till tomorrow. The big thing is, you as a board, are you satisfied with your policy 4318 as it's written? Because it is in compliance with 959, whether it's vetoed or not, you're already in compliance if it goes into effect.
And we'll just wait for the additional language, they do the policy updates from School Board Association to add the DPS.
And then, yes, and then what I will do and plan on that August 4th meeting is to make sure that we report out, these are the parameters that our principals will be putting in place for this year. I know we have 2 flex schools starting. Cell phones are not nearly the concern at the elementary schools as they are middle, as they are high school. High school is going to be the biggest one to make sure that we get them as consistent as we can. And that's something our teachers have asked for as well. We want to make sure that, because they're distractions. We can talk around it all day long. We can talk about it for safety reasons, but they're distractions. There's a lot of mental health issues that we see from it. There's a lot of comparison, and comparison is the thief of joy. So we need to drive these things out of their hands during the school day as much as we can.
To be on them when they're supposed to be in class, regardless of if they have them physically in their backpack or in their locker, they still don't need to be on them.
Well, I agree. I think the policy is strong enough, and I appreciate you guys getting together and coming up with a plan.
Now, a couple of options that schools have looked at, I got this from a presentation that Mr. Campbell did last week. That device on the left is a locking cabinet. That locking cabinet is portable, so if there was a need to go out for a fire drill or for anything like that, it could be picked up, and that would be in each classroom. I have no idea what that costs. The yonder pouch is on the right. That is a pouch that each individual student would have. I think they're about $26 a piece, and they are magnetic, so they would put them in at the beginning of the day. They would lock, they would keep it in their backpack or whatever. At the end of the day, they have the big circle thing, pops the magnet open, and they're able to do that. So those are 2 options that other school districts have done. I don't know anybody who has the one on the left. I know that Chatham County and a couple of people have done the one. Cherokee Central Schools have the yonder pouch. They say it works out well. It's just a matter of training your kids, whatever you do.
Say that one of our schools or 2 of our schools might be piloting the.
No, they have an interest. So we have shown these to our secondary principals. A couple of the high schools have an interest in piloting that, if you all would be interested in it. We're not pushing one way or the other on this right now. I do have the samples over there. So the 2 different pouches, one has the magnet in it, and I'll pass that around and let you look at it. The other is Velcro, and those would be for our students who had the monitoring devices for their insulin levels or any of those things, or ones that for an IEP reason would need a little bit more access. Also, that would be for teachers if the schools wanted to have their teachers participating as well. And that way, if the teacher needed to use it to do the notification or some of the things that we have for our school safety plan on those cell phones as well.
On the yonder pouch, would the little round device, would that be in every classroom?
It would be. It would be.
Okay, so they could unlock it in the classroom?
Yes, yes. So part of that implementation process will be purchase of the pouches, have enough of those magnet releases for each room, leaving the buildings, et cetera, so all the spaces.
My personal opinion, I think we're struggling enough to argue over spending money being able to even feed our kids, so I don't know if it makes sense to extra money on magnetic pouches for our students.
Now, I'm not opposed for a magnetic pouch being an option if a student is caught with it out.
As in being
One of the deterrents, one of the punishments, if you will.
maybe as a disciplinary.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that, but I think we got a whole lot more different things to worry about than trying to activate those magnetic pouches
Well,
for
and every kid can
900
out.
students in a high school. I think we need to shore up our procedures to implement the policy, make sure everyone is, implementing it across the board consistently, establish our disciplinary actions. Again, I'm not opposed to that being a disciplinary action, but I just think we're creating more problems than we need to create if we go any stricter. That's just me. I think we don't have the money. We don't have,
$30,000 a high school.
it doesn't matter what we do. If people are not gonna apply it consistently, we spent the money for nothing. So that's my opinion. It's not what the policy is, it's how is it getting applied and applying consistently. And,
I think the consistent part is the issue, because that's, you can go in every school and see that it's not.
and if we wanna say, no, if principals want to say it, the instructional day means from the moment they walk in the hallways until the moment they end, that's fine. I'm not opposed to allowing flexibility at lunchtime, but I think our policy is good. It covers everything, and
Although I think if we allow flexibility at lunchtime, you're gonna walk into the lunchroom and it's gonna be like this, and people are not gonna be communicating.
that is true. That is true.
Yep, they need that face-to-face.
So what I need from you really is, if you like the policy as is, we will move forward with that. If you see anything that you would like added or noted, we will work with our principals to make sure that's there. But really, for your responsibility, if you're good with policy 4318, then that's how we can move forward for the next school year.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Because that puts you in compliance with whatever, and then we'll come back and we'll let you know procedurally what that is, with an expectation that I, as a superintendent, will back those schools, and that you, as a Board of Education, understand that, and will do the same.
But we do want it to be district-wide. whatever
Yes,
we
ma'am.
do.
Yes, ma'am. I hope you've seen that. It makes it easier on everybody if we're consistent.
It makes it easier for our students and our parents as well.
Well, and it keeps them consistent when they go from school to school. When they go from middle school to high school, the procedures are the same, the expectations are the same.
Exactly. Thank you for bringing
Right.
this to our attention today. All right, and we are ready now for board and superintendent reports, general operations. Mr. Garrett.
Very briefly, remind everyone that kindergarten registration remains open for the class of 2038. And the first wave of the class of 2038 will be showing up next week. What's our latest registration? Do we know, Dr. Marlowe?
The last time we looked, it was 700, but because of the switch from Power School to Infinite Campus, we've actually halted. So I don't know if we're in the process of transitioning people to the new program. So last I know of, it was 700, but I believe schools have been getting calls. And so they've been keeping records for right now.
So the switch over to Infinite Campus will be the learning curve that we've got to go through there. Then June 9th through the 25th, summer meals program continues. That's Meals on the Bus. Reminded those locations are at East Flat Rock Park, Jackson Park, Dana Community Park, and Edneyville Community Center. They're at East Flat Rock and Jackson Park. East Flat Rock and Dana Community from 11 to 11:45, and Jackson Park Shelter Number 4 and Edneyville Community Center from 12 to 12:45. July 7th through the 9th, required staff workday for Flex Calendar. That's 1 week away, so the countdown is on. And then the first day of school for students on the Flex Calendar, including the class of 2038, is July the 10th. On July the 28th, we'll have our administrator in service, and we invite you to come by at 12 p.m. to enjoy lunch with our administrators. If you'd like to do that, that'll be at Blue Ridge Community College. Our new teacher breakfast, if you want to mark down on your calendar, is July the 29th at 8. Is that still at Highland Lake? Okay, so we're going to...
I have a comment there. I attended that last year, and the sound system was terrible.
Unfortunately, I'm sure it will be again this year. And then, Mr. Bridges, we tried to go somewhere different this year, but we are not, so the chamber is the one who's sponsoring this, and we're kind of at their mercy, and we work with them to try to move it for some of those very.
What was terrible, the sandwich?
Sound.
It's a sound system.
Sound.
Oh, my gosh. What?
No, it's breakfast, and breakfast is good.
Did you
I'm trying to put down service.
all of the dates,
Just
yeah.
kidding.
It is breakfast, and breakfast is good,
Okay, breakfast is good.
but the sound is not.
Okay.
You can eat, but not here.
And as Mr. Rhodes noted, this is the chamber's event, and
Somebody call Bob Williford, tell him to do better.
I got a connection over at Highland Lake. Maybe I'll make a phone call.
then August the 4th, we have our regular meeting, and that is typically on the second Monday. It'll be on the first Monday because of starting school on the second Monday. August 4th through 8th is our required teacher and staff work days for our traditional and early calendars. And then August 11th is the first day of school for students on traditional calendars. So as we cross over into July, teachers will now start trying to think about, oh my goodness, summer is coming to an end. So getting those travels in and getting those preps. One thing I would like to mention is as we look through our data from the spring, I'm really excited that we have the highest graduation rate in district history. That's something to celebrate as a district. I know those high schools have worked hard, and every high school is over 90% this time. So that is something that I think is worth celebrating. There's a few others that could click over before the end of the summer that'll report on the 24-25 cohort rate. So we'll update that as we can. But just something that I just want to say, proud of the entire district for that.
Ask a question about East Henderson with the Pathfinders being there. Has that shown some?
So one of the preliminary things that I've looked at is ninth grade retentions. And from looking at the numbers, East Henderson's ninth grade retentions have gone, at least this year, to 0. They have been retaining about 12 to 13 to 15 kids a year from 9th to 10th grade. And so far right now, they're reporting 0 retentions. So that is there's a lot of things that have been going on at that school to improve those things. The mentoring program is a piece of that and is showing to be a very successful piece early on. We'll continue to look at like some testing data and some other pieces as we get those numbers from the state throughout the summer and into the fall. But, my first big quick one is are our kids being able to move from 9th to 10th grade, and that is much improved this year.
Well, I want to say that it has been absolutely a joy to work with that program. The data, the information that we give those kids seems like a great step in advance for them to be able to know instead of finding out on the fly, basically. And we know that the counselors do a great job, but that added voice, that added reminder, even the information, it's like we're giving it to them for the first time, and then they're going to the counselor asking for more information, has been a wonderful path for me to be able to watch them. So I'm impressed by that. And
Well, I think maybe there's something that could improve. I don't know, but I would, It has been a very impressive first year for that program at both schools, at Flat Rock and at East, and very much worth the investment and the efforts that people have put in. And again, I applaud you and some folks in this room who serve as mentors and who are convincing others to come out and mentor. And I think they're getting as much out of it as the kids are, which was the hope as well as we continue to build community.
Thank you.
So plan, I wouldn't say there's a plan, that's the goal. And what we wanted to do was start in one feeder zone and get it very solid so that we knew then how to replicate that around the district. One of the things that we want to beat the timeline of the county that we have kind of mimicked because it took them several years to move from one high school to another. We don't want to wait 20, but we certainly want to make sure that we have our processes and procedures down. Having Maggie Gillum run that has been just a godsend because of her relation to both schools and her history in both schools there. And, you know, it's not just person dependent, but it's about those relationships, and she's done a very, very good job. Had some key people pushing it up front. You know, we want to make sure that East is on very good footing as a feeder zone before looking at North, Hendersonville, and West Henderson. But if you look at the logo and you look at the kind of vision statement for the Pathfinders program, all of our high school feeders would be involved.
As they need to be.
As appropriately and as we can handle that, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And that's what I have, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Oh, quick question.
Okay.
Anything on bus garage?
So, yes, so I had a chance to meet with County Manager, Mr. Mitchell, and we sat down, and he wants to establish a process and a committee. That committee will consist of 5 folks, headed up by Chris Todd, the Assistant County Manager, and would include 2 folks from the county. And then on our side, we'll include Mr. Taylor and Mr. Dillon to talk about a design-build process. So the first step will be for Mr. Todd to convene that group. Mr. Taylor has made contact with him to let him know our availability and our excitement to get that moving. So really the plan is to take the money and get the planning and the pieces in place, and then to move that to the Board of Commissioners for the financing portion, once all of that is established.
Was the contract finalized with LS3P for the,
So no, so we are back to negotiations on that. The initial, we met several times about what we wanted to see in the scope and sequence in looking at existing facilities and systems and all that. The initial price that they brought back to me was $248,000. And I just emailed and said,
Wow.
we can't do that.
Yeah.
And that was late last week. So I will be speaking with LS3P this week.
what was it we had set aside?
We didn't necessarily set anything aside. Your last study took was it like 120? And it was going through every nut and bolt and visiting every campus. We didn't ask for that level this time simply because you got some other things in place and we've got some systems. Well, we got some processes that we already know about. But when we looked at the engineering services and the services of Vinoy Construction, who would do their pricing, and then LS3P, it adds up to about $248,000. And that's just,
Yeah.
and unless you all disagree, that's just way out of line for
Yeah.
what we need. So we will continue. And if we can't find it, we can then move on to another company.
Okay. Any other questions, discussions? We have a motion for adjourn. Second? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. We are adjourned.
Thank you all. Thank you, Tawana, for
Thank you.
breakfast.
Yes.
Delicious.
Very, very good.
Take a plate.